Okay, it's time to commit. 2024 is the year for prioritizing yourself. Begin your new smile journey with Byte, and you could start seeing results in just 2 to 3 weeks. Just order your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95 at Byte.com. Byte clear liners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer financing options, accept eligible insurance, and you could pay with your HSA, FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly minisode where we dig into the things that we've been, I don't know what to say here. Like watching, because we also talk about reading, but I say consuming, but I also start to feel like we're the Blob and we're just consuming everything in our path.
Enjoying.
If there's a different word that we should use here, let us know.
Yeah.
I'm Terry.
I'm Mary Beth. This week we're talking about 2000 slashers, giallo, rare found footage, and a 1980s Mexican Nightmare on Elm Street ripoffs. So that's pretty cool.
That's wild.
Just at the top, we want to make sure everyone is staying safe and is doing relatively okay. We considered not doing an episode today, but we figured it might be a nice little reprieve, a short reprieve for everyone. It's definitely been a nice distraction for us to record, so please, everyone, stay safe. Take care of yourselves as much as possible. Fuck Nazis. Fuck white supremacists. Fuck Trump.
Yeah, exactly. It's. We were talking before we started recording, where it's like we sure picked the day to be recording this because we are literally recording this when shit is popping off in DC, and Mary Beth is of course safe.
Yeah, I live. For those who don't know, I live in DC basically, and got to see some Proud Boys walking to 7-Eleven today.
Fuck's sake.
So, but like Sarah said, I'm safe. I'm very lucky to not be super close to it. And so,
And if you are living anywhere in this area, we hope you're staying safe and staying secure because it's quite
what we need.
I don't even know what to say. It's news is happening so quickly, and I don't know, maybe you guys could use the distraction because we certainly could for recording. So stay safe.
And if anyone in the DC DMV area needs to talk or reach out or needs anything, let me know. My DMs are open, so let me know. On that note, Terry, what have you been watching this week?
Oh, what have I been watching? Well, I just want to mention this very briefly because when this episode airs, the reviews the embargo on the reviews for Search Party are over. And I am 6 episodes into it. I think this might be the final season. But if you have HBO Max, I really would recommend giving this show a chance. It is really good. And while this season is a lot different than the previous seasons, I'm actually really enjoying it. And I think that I wish more people were watching it.
Cool. I know I keep seeing it on HBO Max and you keep talking about it. So I'm going to have to start watching it.
It's so good. This season is a bit more dark. Like each season kind of tackles a genre trope in a different way. Like the first season is almost like a noir amateur private detective movie. The second season kind of becomes a paranoid thriller. The third season is sort of like a courtroom drama. And this one has gone full psychological horror.
Oh.
But it all ties in with like very, very, very witty and sharp humor. So it's like this weird mix of like comedy and genre that has changed every season. And this season might have handed a little bit too dark for the show, but it's something that I think more people should be talking about. And Alia Shawkat's performance as the main character is just I think she should be getting Emmys for her last two seasons. Like this is just her performance is fantastic. So I don't want to dwell on that because that's not what I wanted to talk about today, but I just want to throw that out there.
Search Party, right?
Search Party. And it is premiering on the 14th, on my birthday, 14th or 15th, either my birthday or the day after. I can't remember which, but I think it's the 14th. Next week, you'll be able to watch it. And the first 3 seasons are currently streaming on HBO Max. So do with that as you will. But what I watched this week is this movie. So I'm trying to start going back through my backlog of movies that I've been getting because I've signed up for another year of Vinegar Syndrome and they're just piling up. So this movie is called Don't Panic.
Okay.
It is a Mexican filmed slasher from 1988 it's in English. It was filmed in English, but it's a Mexican director, Ruben Galindo Jr. It has a partially Mexican cast and partially white cast, American cast, I believe. And it is it's kind of wild. It's about this kid named Michael, who on his 17th birthday is given a Ouija board, and his friends and him like break into his house after his mom goes to sleep and like pull out this Ouija board where they present it to him with candles like a birthday cake, but the candles are sitting in Coke cans, which I didn't quite get. And they use the board to contact some being called Virgil. Then all of a sudden, Michael starts having these dreams, I guess, of like where he's seeing a killer kill off his friends. So there's like a little bit of a Nightmare on Elm Street like homage in here, or a ripoff if you want to like go a little harsher. Like there's a scene in class where he's like in class and he's fallen asleep and his friend is sitting in the desk next to him, just like bleeding out of her body. And it's like, it kind of reminds me of like the Tina scene in the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, I was going to say. So, but like his eyes turn bright red when he is witnessing these acts, and he like can't see out of his eyes because he's actually seeing out of the eyes of the killer, I guess. And so like the cops start to think that he's doing it, and so it goes in that direction. But it's a wild movie, and the reason why I wanted to start it is that this director has 3 Vinegar Syndrome movies. And I own all 3, so I was like, ooh, I'm gonna make this a trilogy and watch all 3 of them. So yeah, this was quite a movie from 1988, and it's on from Vinegar Syndrome. It's not necessarily great, but I did have a good time watching it. It's kind of wild. And it's Don't Panic. Yes, it's called Don't Panic. I think the original title was Dimensiones Occultas. Is like the Mexican title, but I'm really kind of confused about where this movie was. I mean, because it was filmed in Mexico City. It's a Mexican production, but I think it was made for U.S. audiences. Oh, it probably was trying to be like more marketable to like Hollywood-esque. Yeah, it kind of feels like the way that Italian horror would, hire. Yeah. So that is Don't Panic, and it's a trip. Okay. All right. I feel like most Vinegar Syndrome releases can be defined as
a trip.
A trip. So I think next week I'm going to watch another one of his movies because, like I said, he has 3 that are out for Vinegar Syndrome. There's this one. There is Cemeteries of Terror.
Ooh.
And there is Grave Robbers.
All
so
right.
A little bit of a theme there.
Huh. Cool.
But that's what I've been watching. But we both have been watching Wrong Turn. We've been taking our misadventures in Wrong Turndom. And this week we watched the straight-to-video sequel, Wrong Turn 2 Dead End. And Mary Beth, what did you think about this movie?
I hated it. I'm sorry. Like, I'm gonna straight up say it. And it was funny because you were like, it's like everyone loves the second one. Right?
Yeah.
Is that what you told me?
Yeah. It's
okay.
like the one that everyone seems to like.
There's like a million poop jokes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
shit
mean
ghost.
to be a prudy pants, but like he farts and calls it a shit ghost. I mean, like, look, I can stand a poop joke or two, but this was like a lot of shit jokes. Like, so many. Why? I just didn't. The kills were cool. There was some very cool kills, but I think it was like very raunchy.
Yeah.
In a way that wasn't funny.
Yeah.
What did you think, Terry?
I do not disagree with that one bit. In fact, especially with the raunchy part, because when I had tweeted that I was watching this movie, Alex Wiggins replied to me and said that his favorite part is Crystal Lowe's character blowing the director of a low-budget mini game show with hopes of it opening doors. / she was bored and wanted to get her rocks off. Like, that is what we're going into with this movie.
But the best part of that scene was I had subtitles on. And it said it was like something like squelching noises, like while she was sucking his dick. It was like the worst description. I was like, okay. All right.
Well, I also think this movie gets credit because it's directed by Joe Lynch, and a lot of people like him. I really like Mayhem.
Okay. I haven't seen Mayhem, but I want to see Mayhem. I feel bad. Like, I shouldn't say hated it, but I really did not like it.
I felt like, I don't know, just kind of meh about it. I loved, like you said, I loved the gore. There's some really good gore gags.
There's some really good gore.
I really liked the fact that Kimberly Caldwell is in this, is like the sort of opening kill.
Yeah.
Like, she's like the famous person that they cast for this to like get killed like Drew Barrymore style. And she gets like split down the middle. And I did laugh when the two cannibals start dragging each half of her body down the street.
I know.
I was like, okay, this is kind of funny. Like, I was laughing at that part.
It's definitely funnier than the first one. Like, it's definitely meant to be like more of a horror comedy, right? At least that's how I read it.
No, I completely agree. I think a lot of the characters are really insufferable.
They are. They're awful. They're just like so shallow-y to me and like not very well acted.
No, and that was one of the notes I took, was that I get that like it thinks it was making a smart choice by like killing off the person you think is going to be the final girl. Because I honestly thought that the poor director's girlfriend was going to be, well, probably at that point ex-girlfriend was going to be the final girl because she's filled up that way, and then she gets killed. But they left the really bad actress as the final girl.
Also, like, they did nothing to like they make you like hate her basically, like, because she's so grumpy and nasty, and like I feel like there's like some redeeming moments, but they didn't really do a good job of being like, oh cool, I'm excited she's the final girl. It's like, ew, really? Her? I don't know. It's just
and then
like,
when it veers into the veers hard into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes at the end, is like, she does not have the acting chops to carry this.
No.
But two things did stick out at me, Mary Beth. The first one is that Bear McCreary did the music.
Oh.
Which he's come quite a long way from scoring this film to doing like Walking Dead,
Godzilla,
like 10 Cloverfield Lane. Oh, he also did the music to Battlestar Galactica back in the day.
Oh, good for him.
So like, Yeah, but it was weird seeing him as the composer of that. And then the other thing, the one question I wanted to ask you is, do you ever remember printing out maps from MapQuest?
Yeah.
Because that was the first thing I noticed. Kimberly Caldwell is driving, and she has a map that her agent, who is voiced by Patton Oswalt.
Oh, I thought that was Patton Oswalt. I meant to look that up, but it sounded just like him. Okay.
Yeah, I did look it up because I was like, that has to be Patton. And she is holding out a printed out map from MapQuest. I was like, oh my God, I remember those days.
Oh, I used to too. That's actually, you know what's really funny? Steve's dad still prints out directions.
Oh no!
In the year 2021.
My parents still use an atlas. They have an atlas in their car.
Oh my God!
And they read it. They pull it out on trips. Yeah. So they did. They never even went to the printing out MapQuest stage. They've just always had an atlas. And I remember going on a long trip when we were, I think it was in 2018 when we were going to Telluride, and they're like handed me their atlas to have. And I was like,
you're like, how do I read this?
This is so sweet. You think that I know how to read this?
Oh, MapQuest.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was
Memories.
like my biggest takeaway from this movie. Is like, oh, you can tell this was the early aughts because there was MapQuest.
I mean, yeah, wasn't a big fan. Glad I watched. Like, it's fun. Like, I sound like I'm being a Debbie Downer, but like, there's some cool parts to it. The gore is worth it.
Yeah, I actually really liked the gore.
Yeah, I was.
And
really
I liked
impressed
Henry
with it.
Rollins. I love Henry Rollins.
He's just like constantly up to 11.
He really
like,
is
screaming. I would have watched a movie about him all by himself.
I know. I wanted to follow his character more than any of the other ones, honestly.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid to tell you that I think it's only going to go down from here. So.
Oh, I know. I was looking up like rankings of the Wrong Turn series, so I was curious. And it seems like 5 is the worst one across the board.
Okay. I think people like 4 because it's in the snow.
Yeah, and then I know the 6th one people really like.
Okay.
Or I've heard people like. At this point, but I heard people liked Wrong Turn too. So like, I don't know. I don't even know. I'm still excited to watch them. Like, I've had fun watching them, so it's not like a waste of my time. It's fun to watch, and like I said, it's kind of nice. I'm glad to be going through like 2000 slashers and just seeing like how different they are.
And speaking of different, so before we do talk about this next movie, I wanted to ask you a question, Mary Beth. Did you know that they actually found an 11th commandment? And it's weird because the commandment isn't written in like old language, but it did say don't torture a duckling. So
that was very good. Don't torture a duckling.
It sounded better in my head when I was thinking about this joke, but
I love it so much. Yes. I'll remember that. I won't torture any duckling.
Yeah, it is the 11th, the unofficial 11th commandment. So,
cool.
So this movie.
Yeah. So for those of you who haven't seen Don't Torture a Duckling, it's the synopsis is like, again, makes no sense to me. A reporter and a young woman investigate a series of child murders in a remote Italian town.
I like this other one from IMDb that says a reporter and a promiscuous young woman.
Oh, that's right. But also, like, the reporter and the promiscuous young woman don't get together to like do the investigation until like 3/4 of the way into the movie. Yeah.
So this is something that I actually really like about this movie, because especially coming from the movies that we've watched so far and that are in the giallo subgenre, is that this almost seems like the kind of anti-giallo, because it's set in a rural setting. Mm-hmm. There is an investigation, but like it's more of a chamber piece. Like it's more like we have all these different characters that we learn about through this murder mystery. Yeah. And then it's again about kids instead of murdering young male kids instead of like women, which seems to be like the typical giallo fascination.
Yeah, it's like not as like it's not as like the murders aren't as graphic. Like they still show kids dying, which is pretty intense, but it's not like these phallic stabbings.
Right.
It's just like very upsetting close-up murders of children.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess let's just throw a spoiler warning up front, because I think what makes this movie interesting to talk about are things that are going to ruin it. So if you haven't watched it yet, maybe skip ahead. If you care about spoilers, it's on Shudder.
Yeah, and I'll put time codes in the show notes so you guys can know when to skip ahead.
So let's talk about the graveyard scene.
What the Fulci said, "Here I am."
Yeah,
with the graveyard scene. So there's a woman who is into a witch. Is she considered a witch?
Yeah, I believe she is. Although I will maintain that I think that I think that this movie is tackling the idea of otherness, and superstitions around people that are other. I think she probably has a mental illness. I think is kind of what I kind of gathered from her. Yeah,
but so she takes these three voodoo dolls and like puts pins in them, and she says, "Oh yeah, I'm the killer because I put these pins in the voodoo dolls." And the cops are like, "Oh, no, you're not." But the townspeople, who are ultra superstitious and ultra, like Terry said, not appreciative or kind to the other, a couple of men trap her in a graveyard and just start whipping her with chains.
Yeah, it's the most. It's the most like violent, like on-screen violence in this movie is in this scene. Like most of the other stuff, except for like maybe the last death.
The last death, I
actually kind of think is funny.
I know, it's
unintentionally funny, but
I felt bad.
But this moment is like the one like very vicious and upsetting moment of the film,
and it goes on for a long time.
It does, and it's.
Like Fulci loves gore, and so there's a lot of close-ups of like watching her skin break open.
Yeah,
which is impressive and also terrifying because like the effects are super impressive, but like you see her skin rip open, like close up. There is no like cutting away. Like Fulci wants you to look at what this woman is going through.
Yeah, and I think he wants to like expose the violence inherent in this town, because like I think it's telling that, you know, she escapes the graveyard and then she dies on the road where everyone is just callously driving by her, but she dies holding on to a rock that is very similar to, it might be the same place, the rock where at the very beginning of this movie, one of the young boys who ultimately ends up getting killed just like callously shoots a lizard with his slingshot. So like, there is violence in this town. There is this sense of anger and malice towards things that, like a lizard, that it cannot really protect itself. And that seems to be a theme that is really driven home in this sequence. So like, I mean, there's absolutely like a conversation that can be had, because it is, violence on a woman's body. And it's the one time in this movie that it's very in your face with that. But I do think it kind of ties into the theme a lot more than a typical giallo would.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like this, I mean, it's sensationalized, but it's not like a woman with her tits out getting stabbed in between her tits. You know what I mean? Like, it's violent. It's not titillating.
No.
Because I feel like this is probably one of the most brutal things we've seen in a giallo so far. At least I would say so, if my memory serves. Like one of the most brutal death scenes that goes on for so long.
Well, and I think that it's also brutal because it's not over the top. Like you've seen like a little bit more gory things. Like I'm thinking about in Tenebrae, when the woman's arm gets cut off and she just sprays the wall with her blood. But this isn't over the top at all. It's cruel. Yeah, it's cruel.
Especially because you see her crawling up the hill and no one's helping her. The other thing I actually thought was really cool about this scene was how they use diegetic music, and the guy opens up his car and starts playing music, and then it changes to a very somber song when she's like crawling away, which is it was a really cool use of music cues, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
In a very like a harrowing moment, but Jesus Christ.
And then, I mean, we kind of talked about this a little bit offline, but then Fulci turns the attention on the Catholic Church and kind of shows the hypocrisy in that institution.
Yes.
And it's in fact the reason that this movie did not play in Europe for a bit. I believe that what I was reading at one point, the controversial storyline which criticized the Catholic Church. The movie was blacklisted and received a limited theatrical run throughout Europe and was never released in theaters in the United States.
Shocking how much influence the Catholic Church seems to have over things.
Yeah. He was also apparently arrested on, and this is another scene I want to talk about, on child endangerment grounds because of what scene would you think he'd be arrested for child endangerment scenes, Mary Beth? Would it be the fully nude Patricia?
Yeah, I was trying to think of violence, but the scene where she's laying naked and dumps orange juice down her tits and then is like, do you want me? And it's like, what are you doing? This is a child.
Yeah. Yeah. Turns out, I mean, he didn't, they were all filmed separately. So he wasn't like actually filming a child watching a naked woman, because that would be, definitely grounds for a child endangerment. Exposing yourself to a minor.
I'm glad, but Jesus, we still had to watch it. Like,
no, it's a very, it's a very weird scene. I'm not quite sure what the intent of it was, because I don't think it's necessarily needed to portray her as this sort of, because like all the suspects are like people that are outside of society. You know, you have this woman that is sexually liberated. You have a man who is mentally handicapped that the people want to throw blame on, and then you have this witch. So like all three of the suspects are out what are deemed the other, and so, but I don't think you need that to like show that she is sexually promiscuous.
Yeah, it was almost like they were trying to make her like a pervert, like not just like promiscuous, but like sexually perverted. But then like it doesn't make sense, because I feel like with the two other others, they're very much dedicated to being like, these people are not good. But with her, there's a not a redemption arc, but kind of like she's all of a sudden a good guy helping with the investigation. It was very weird. I don't know if they just wanted to have her tits out. I
feel like they could have done a different way to do that.
Yeah,
though.
I think so too. I mean,
she's
also
beautiful.
Feel like
don't get me wrong.
She is. She's gorgeous. It was a very weird, uncomfortable moment. And maybe that was the point, but boy, oh boy.
Boy, oh boy.
Bizarre. Yeah.
Good movie though, I think.
Yeah. The more I sat on it, the more I enjoyed it. I was like, this is so strange. It's so different from a lot of the other giallos we've watched. It's
absolutely.
Very different tone, but it's really good and upsetting.
Yeah.
It's pretty disturbing.
Yeah. So other than that, what else have you been watching, Mary Beth? I'm curious about this rare found footage film.
Come on a journey with me.
Is this the one that you spent like an hour trying to find subtitles for?
Yes, it is. So, okay, this is The Black Door from 2001. It is a found footage movie directed by Kit Wong. It is a found footage movie directed by a woman, which is kind of hard to find.
Oh.
So it's very exciting. Basically, a camera crew is called by a woman named Meg to investigate a strange course of events that put her boyfriend Steven in the hospital. He is covered in these like ridiculously large scratches, and they don't know what it is. And so Steven was making a documentary about basically a cult. And so this is about like what happened when he got too close to the cult. It's got good? Okay. I'm trying to think of how to say this.
Yeah.
There are a lot of good parts. There's some weird tonal stuff, like in terms of switching, but for the most part, it's very enjoyable. So this is a very hard movie to find. I found this movie on the internet.
Yeah.
In my own way.
Yeah.
And the movie The movie, I believe, was made in English, but the only version you can find online is with the Spanish dub.
Really?
I don't like, and that's like consensus across the board for anyone who's seen it. It's the dub, Spanish dub. So it's very strange. There's like no DVD. I can't find the director anywhere. It was her only movie she directed. And so I was like, well, I really want to watch this. And I don't understand Spanish well enough to watch the whole movie without subtitles.
Right.
So I went digging for the SRT files, which I eventually found. And the translation was not the best, but I know Spanish well enough to kind of fill in the blanks. And also like I got the standard, like the kind of got the gist of it.
Yeah.
Look, if you guys didn't understand my dedication to
I know.
footage,
I'm like,
now you know. Like I went searching.
that is dedicated. Although now that you mention it, I think that might have been the same way that I saw like I don't remember which Spanish horror movie, but I had to go like digging for subtitle files. And that is an experience.
I've done it before with like, it's interesting. It's not as hard as you think, but it's weird. I've had to do it a couple times for like Korean and Japanese movies.
Mm-hmm.
But so this movie is, it's a pseudo documentary format. So think like Lake Mungo, think the Poughkeepsie tapes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple, it's weird. It ends really abruptly and it's a little bit bizarre, but there's a really, really good sequence near the beginning that's filmed in 8mm of a sacrificial cult ritual, which is very good. And then there's a sequence in the middle where Stephen, we get to see his like journey through a house before he gets attacked. So there's some really, really good components. I think there's a little bit of a stumbling block, like stitching it all together, but I'm really glad I found it. Like this is stuff, but it's from 2001, so it's very early.
Right.
And it's a really awesome look at kind of early pseudo documentaries because there aren't a ton of them. Their last broadcast is one of them, which I think came before Blair Witch, but this is a really cool experiment with that form. And I think really well done. I wish it was easier to find, and I wish I could find the director, Kit Wong. If anyone knows her, hit me up. But I really enjoyed it. So, and I think I saw it on some random found footage group, as most of my discoveries are. But yeah, it's kind of fun to find movies like this that you have to kind of dig for, because it was found footage, especially if you're looking for a snuff film.
Yeah.
Which like isn't it? It's like it's creepy, but it's kind of fun. And when you get it, you feel very like, oh, I did it, and then you get to watch it and you're like, ooh, this is something that not a lot of people have seen. It's kind of a cool feeling. Not my favorite way to watch movies, but this was
Sometimes
fun.
you gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do. And I wouldn't give up. I was like, God damn it. But that's what I watched besides everything else talked about. Okay, so that about does it for this week's mini-sode. But before we wrap up, Terry, who are we talking to on Monday?
We are talking to, speaking of found footage, Richard Waters, the director of the found footage film In a Stranger's House, and we're talking to him about Poltergeist 3.
You can't see me dancing, but it was such a good conversation, and he's really
so
awesome.
I love him.
In a Stranger's House is streaming on Prime if you want to check it out. It's really good. It's pretty short, just him and a camera.
Yeah,
so
I dug it.
Good. So did I.
And so on top of that, Mary Beth, as well as continuing our misadventures at this point in Wrong Turn, what else are we talking about next week in Little Cuts?
Okay. I have it in front of me so I don't get it wrong.
Because I forget every time I look away from it.
Your vice is a locked room, and only I have the key. I was like, vice room keys? When I... but your vice is a locked room and only I have the key. I've heard really good things about this one. It's on Prime, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Terry?
it's not on Shudder. This one is on Prime.
Prime.
At least in the US.
Yeah. So this will be another exciting watch.
I think it might also be the longest title that we've seen in the Giallo.
It's like a Panic at the Disco or a Fall Out Boy lyric. It's like, okay, hold on. But so I'm excited. I've heard really good things. So, but everybody, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. Did you watch a film that we watched this week and have some thoughts? Do you have suggestions for movies we should talk about? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm a Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to Steve Barnold for our artwork. Oh, actually, thank you to Eric Power for our artwork.
For both of them now.
For both of them. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, go to our Twitter and look at the amazing
we sort of stealth released it.
Video that Eric Power made for us. Eric Power, director of Attack of the Demons. He made us the most amazing intro video of all time.
So fucking good.
So, it's so good. Anyway, thank you, Eric Power. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you to everyone for listening. Please, please, please stay safe out there, both physically, emotionally, mentally, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.